Hi, this is Glennis at Shibori Girl Studios, and I'm posting up a little video for those of you ordering the Holiday Cheer kit, and just a quick little piece that you can make easily and with nothing else other than needle thread and a pair of scissors, maybe a little hot glue to glue the appliance on the back. In your kit, you would have received a 9 or 10-inch length of the red ribbon, a little bit of silk batting for the inside of the flower, 2 pieces of pleated silk green batting for the leaves, and these are generally opened up like this, so they're pleated on a fold. We'll see why later. You'll also receive some millinery stamens for this kit. They're kind of a crystallized tip for a holiday effect. You'll get another small little bit of a stamen for the inside of the flower, and a backing for your piece once you've finished it. This happens to be a bar pin alligator clip combination. So, of course, you could put on your own backing if you want to use a mag bar or you have another appliance that you want to use. It's up to you. So I've pre-threaded a few needles here so we don't take time during the video to do this. I generally use an 8 or 9 millimeters needle. It's my preferred needle of choice for flower making. Generally, I use a nylon thread, which is pretty invisible once I'm sewing with it. You can see it a little bit there. That way, I don't have to change colors when I'm doing a whole bunch of different flowers. But I wanted to use a white thread here. In the video, it's more visible. That way you can see what I'm doing, hopefully a little bit better. Okay, so to begin with, you're going to take your red ribbon and you're going to put the right sides together. And by right sides, that is the shinier side of the ribbon. So you're going to insert your needle in the edge there, and with about 1/8 of an inch or 1/8 to 1/4 inch seam allowance, you're just going to rock your needle back and forth and sew just a straight stitch across the cut ends of this ribbon. So I'm just feeding the stitches onto the needle. When I get enough on there that I want to pull the thread through, I can do that. If I open this out, you can see they're fairly tiny stitches. So as I go along here, I just pull the pleats open, making sure that I'm catching the edge on the other side as well, and just continue on with that simple running stitch all the way across the piece. When I get to the other side, I'll pull my needle through, and I'm going to distribute the gathers. I'm going to leave some gathers in this piece here. And I would say the gathers are going to be about 2.5 inches. I'll gather it up about 2.5 inches or so. Now, the fully spread out, these pleats are about 4 inches. So you're almost cutting that in half. So when I get to that other side, I'm going to take several securing stitches here, and that's just to hold those gathers in place. Okay. So the next thing I'm going to do, I'm not going to cut my thread. I'm simply going to continue on, but I'm only going to stitch through one layer, and I'm just going to do a running stitch all the way around one side of this piece. Now this doesn't have to be as small of a stitch as the seam that we just did, because this is also going to be a gathered edge, but it's also not going to be seen. So you don't have to make it as tiny of a stitch. I'll show you in a second. Okay, I've gotten all the way around, and you can see if I stretch this out, you can see the white thread here. Fairly large stitch. Now here I'm going to pull that up. I'm gathering that up, and once I have it gathered up, again I'm going to take several little securing stitches in the same place, just again to secure the gathers that I've placed there. So now I'm going to pass my needle into the center or the back side of the piece where that seam allowance is on the inside now. And I'm going to, I have enough thread. Now if you don't have enough thread left on your needle, then you can cut your thread and rethread and start again. But since I have plenty of thread, I'm going to just jump up to that other top edge. Okay, so you can see I'm just jumping the thread there. All right, and I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to just go around this other side with a larger gathering running stitch. And go all the way around this. The reason I do these two separately is because I'm going to put a little bit of that silk batting in between these two layers, and if I had stitched both edges together at the same time, I wouldn't be able to put that batting inside there. Okay, so I've got that all stitched around. You can see how quickly this is coming together. All right, so that's the one side we just stitched. Flipping it over, here's the other side. And I'm going to take a bit of this silk batting, and I like to stress it a little bit just so that it's kind of not as dense. You probably won't have to use the whole piece that you get into your kit. But now you can see I still have my needle attached, and I'm just going to tuck this batting in under the edge of this all the way around here. Now you don't want to overstuff this, so I've got about 3 inches left, and I'm just tearing that off, setting it aside. You can use it for another project. And then I'm going to just pull that gather tightly. So you can see it's taken on a little flower sort of shape here. And since I still have my needle attached, I'm going to just take an edge, and I'm going to go put the needle through it and pull it down into the center there. And I'm going to come up and down a few times here. And I'm looking for any little edges here that I might want to just pull down into that center. Okay. So that's kind of it. That's enough. So again, I'm going to take a few little securing stitches on the back side just to lock my stitches in place. before I cut my thread. Okay, so now I'm going to cut my thread. I always put my needle back into either a pin cushion or my beading mat, that sort of thing. All right, so here we are. We've got the piece. On the side here, I've got my hot glue gun heating up. And I'm going to take my little bit of milliner's stamens here, and I'm going to unwrap this wire here momentarily, and save your wire, set it down. You're going to use that again. And I'm going to kind of line these up if yours aren't lined up when you get it. And I'm going to take my wire again here and place it in the center and wrap this around tightly 3 or 4 times. That'll be good. And you can kind of twist that if you like, just to get it out of your way. Then I'm going to fold this in half. Okay, so I'm folding that those wrapped stamens again into a little bunch, and I'm taking that length of wire and I'm going to wrap this up close to where the little glass beads end on the stamens. Okay, so you're going to wrap that really tight. Okay, if you have too much, you can always take some just craft scissors, not your good fabric scissors, and cut off the extra there. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut this off right here. Okay, so again, I'm going to grab those craft scissors and I'm going to cut that just below where the wire wrap is. I want it to stay together, but I don't want to have a lot of length on the end of this. So now I'm going to take my hot glue over here. Make sure you don't get this on your flower or anything else. You're going to just squeeze out a little dab of this and touch it to the base of your stamens. It's just a little bit. And then you're going to put it right down into that center of your flower and kind of like grab it so it can get glued all the way around the base of those stamens. Okay. And once that is cooled nicely, I'm going to set this aside right now. We're going to open that up. But in the meantime, we're going to move on to the leaves. And you're going to open up your leaf fabric. All right. And I like to use some of these zigzag pinking shear scissors, okay? And what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut a leaf shape using the pinking shears, okay? And that center fold is going to represent the center leaf of the center of this leaf. So when you fan it out, it really looks like a nice little flower shape. Now, I'm going to go ahead and stitch the base of this right now, and then I can go back and trim up and the edge to shape them. So to do that, I've got my needle and thread again, and I've just kind of scrunched the base together, and I'm going through those pleats. It doesn't have to be every one. It can be somewhat random. Okay, like that. And I'm pulling my, oops, I got my other one caught up here. There we go. And once you get to the other side, then you're going to feed your needle back again through. And you're going to do this a couple of times just to get that base gathered together. Okay. And you can see as you tug on it, it kind of pulls the leaf outwards a bit. So just do this a few times and then secure it with several stitches in the same spot. Then you can cut your thread and move on to your second leaf. Okay. Just knotting the end here. Okay. Take my pinking shears again. And if you notice, I'm really more concerned with the top part of the leaf, not so much the base of it, because I'm going to trim that away later anyway, and it's going to be hidden behind the flower. So, okay, so here we go. And you don't want to have all of your leaves exactly the same. In fact, you know, you really can't make them exactly the same. So don't try to. They look better if they're one of a kind and unique. Just like in nature, every leaf is not identical. So again, back and forth through the base to gather the base of the leaf together. And once you have that done, then you can take a couple of securing stitches and be done with it. If you have plenty of thread on the base of this, or after doing the base of the leaf left on your needle, you can leave your needle and thread attached, because you can use that to attach the leaf to the back of the flower. Let me move my scraps out of the way there. Now I'm going to go back, and I don't know, this one looks pretty good. I'm going to just trim this away a little bit. And this one, I'm going to straighten up that side a little and maybe make a little bit more pointed tip. So there's my two leaves. Now that this is cooled sufficiently, I can kind of pull these apart and spread them out a little. Okay, so I like to spread them out. They look like little ice crystals in the center of this flower. And you can just leave it like that if you like. If you want to put one of those little red bits in the middle, you're going to kind of do the same thing. And very carefully, because you don't want your glue to show, you're just going to put a tiny dab at the base of this. And you're going to put it right down there inside that and push it down and kind of maybe even pull up your other stamens around it so that it's all kind of connected. So again, let that cool nicely before you start moving anything around. Now you can decide if you want to use 2 leaves or just 1 leaf on the back of your flower. The ones that I did here have 2. And so let me start with the one that has the needle still attached to it. Okay, so I just kind of look at it and decide where the leaf looks best behind the flower. And I've got my thread, and I'm just going to whip stitch this to the back of my flower. And I'm not going to go, I'm only going through the back of the silk flower. It's not coming all the way up through it. So just kind of tack that on around. Okay, and move back to the other side. The one thing you want to note is you don't want your leaf flopping like this. Okay, so you attach it at the base like this, and then you're going to, I'm moving all the way over to this other side here, and I'm going to whip. I'm not going to pull that really tight because, you know, I don't want to distort the shape of the flower. But now I want to whip this to this side, okay, to hold that down. Okay, but still there's a little bit of a chance it could flop. So what I do is I will insert my needle there, and I'll just kind of go in between the layers of the flower, and I'll come up kind of near the edge of the flower, and then I'll just grab a little bit. I'll go through that leaf, and then I'll come back. And this is all happening kind of behind the flower. Okay, so you're not going to see it. And you can see now that this is not flopping away from the flower. Okay, so now I have that handled, and I'm going to just take several stitches again in the same spot and secure my thread and cut it. So the next one, the next leaf here, so now this is nice and cooled, so I can manipulate this a little bit if I'd like, but I think it looks pretty good, so I don't really need to. So if I want to add a second leaf, I can do it like that. All right, you know, I can put it off to the side if I want that, but I usually do it kind of like this. So again, I'm going to take needle and thread and stitch the back. I don't know if you can hear the dogs barking. Must be meal time. They're not in this room, but they're in another part of the house. Okay, so again, I don't want this to be floppy here, so I'm going to work my way up the side here. And back underneath and back again, checking to make sure that you're not going through the front of your flower. You know, you want to go through the flower invisibly so you can tack that on. Okay. So I'm just going to take a couple little stitches through that silk and back down through the back of the leaf, where I'll take a couple of securing stitches right through that leaf and where I can cut my thread, and this flower is finished. So the next thing I'll do is I'll just take the little clip, and I'll put a little bit of glue in this little, it's kind of a cup shape. You don't want to have too much because you don't want it squirting out along the edge. But cover, I usually try and cover the kind of the ugliest part of the back, which is the center of the flower and where the leaves attach. So you're just going to hold that down there, and you're going to let that cool, and your flower's done. So some ideas for, if this isn't for you or you're making them for a gift, sometimes just putting it on top of a gift as a ornament, or just a floral piece on top of a gift. Here I've just tagged it onto some old Christmas cards that I cut the front part off of and attached it there. So that's now of course these can be done with any of the ribbon colors. So just a very small, simple, nice little flower, and I'll really have to add some other ribbon colors into the shop, some other kits, so you can make these in any of the ribbon colors. But maybe you already have some ribbon, shibori ribbon at home from a previous purchase, and something else you can do with them. Okay, let me know if you have any questions. Thanks for watching.